I don't know. Recently, someone asked me like, what was the weirdest thing on a session, and I won't give the artist name, but I had an artist that we were mixing, and this artist, while we were mixing, the artist spent a lot of time hanging out in the lounge. The artist would order food, and then a lot of times he would always leave like right after he ate. So he would order food, and he would eat, and then he would split.
So he'd end his day with food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or like he would like leave for a while and then come back like while we were mixing or whatever. But his rhythm was to like go, if he was gonna leave the building, he would do it immediately after he ate. Which isn't strange, but what was strange was the thing he did in between eating and walking out the door was he would take all of his like waste from his lunch, like the paper box or the bag or whatever it came in, he would stuff it into the sink of the lounge and turn the faucet on and then leave and leave it on. And after the first time he did it, I was just like, oh, he forgot to turn the faucet off, and the reason the trash is in the sink is because he couldn't find the garbage, because the lounge he was in, the garbage can was one of those like under the counter situations. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, he just couldn't find the garbage. So he got frustrated and stuffed it in the sink. So I grabbed like a big, like 3-foot tall bin and put it like right next to the sink. And I'm like, oh, this'll help. Next day, same thing. Like just bypass the garbage bin that I put there. It's like stuffed it in the sink, turned the faucet on and left.
Yeah.
And this kept happening. And then it made its way into the bathroom. Like he would wash his hands, dry his hands with like the paper towels, and then throw the paper towels in the sink and then turn the faucet on. And those would actually clog the sink, and like the water would have to go out the little like drain on the top of the inside of the rim. And I never got to the bottom of it. I never.
So he left the faucet running and then walked out.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I have no idea why. It was like just a strange ism that he had.
Welcome back to Fermented Follies. Today we are eating miso soup.
So my name is Sean, last name Badum, Badum. I feel like I'm on the phone with like customer service right now. No, my TV's still not working. It's very frustrating. But yeah, I'm from Wolcott, Connecticut, and I've been living in Nashville for just a little over 10 years now. And I am an audio engineer, or that's at least what they tell me. And yeah.
I like to tell my brother, who's an actual engineer, that I'm an engineer.
That's amazing. What kind of engineer? So, like most people that want to do music from the Northeast, I was, figured New York. Everyone's just like, oh, you gotta do New York. And my brother, who's a creative, lives in New York, and it was like always seemed like that would be the destination. So when I was going to school, LA never even crossed my mind. I was like, that's just too far away. Also, I'd never been there. Still, I've never been there.
Yeah.
I always kind of thought New York would be the place to be. And then I went to school in Orlando, and I detested Orlando. I detested Florida in general. This is not my spot. And while I was there, I became, and also like Nashville was never even on the radar. Like I'd heard of it, and I knew, it was referred to as like the Music City, but it was like, like, oh, that's where, and I was just not a country person. So like, that's where country gets made. That's not where Sean's gonna go. So, while I was in school, I became really good friends with my friend Kenny, who is from West Virginia, and his New York was Nashville. Growing up in West Virginia, that was where you go to do music. So his end goal was always Nashville, and he kind of just talked me into it. It was like maybe a year into the program. I went to the Full Sail down there. It was like a year into the program, and we took a trip. It was on Easter Sunday, 2010. We were going to drive to Nashville from Orlando. We were living in Winter Park, and we were going to leave at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So you can get into Nashville in time to like have dinner and go do some stuff. And still have it. 2006 Dodge Magnum. Had it for like a little over a year at that point. Never had a problem with this car. Super reliable. Drove it to and from Florida a couple times at that point. Thing was fine. That morning, As I'm getting on the highway, it stalls. And it would restart, but it would, as soon as you got above like 5 miles an hour, it'd stall.
Wow.
And we're like, cars packed full of shit, trying to like go on this road trip. And so we're all like roaring to go. And it's Easter Sunday too, so it's like, good luck getting a tow truck or anyone to look at this car. So, and also like I mean, I'm into cars. I was like in college at the point, like what was wrong with this car was beyond what I was gonna be able to do in the parking lot of this gas station that we ended up at. So, and blew like that whole day trying to like figure out what we were gonna do. Kenny had a car, but it was like really old and sketchy at best, and he didn't have a spare. So it was like, we're trying not to take Kenny's car. And I think both of us were too young at that point to rent a car. So we're stuck in Orlando, and our goal is to come to Nashville and meet all these people that were eventually trying to intern at, we had like a meeting here at Blackbird, and we had meetings all over town, and a meeting at Soundstage, and all this stuff booked on these like plans, and it's just like completely stalled at this point. So sat around all day Sunday. Monday, the car that I had was still under warranty, so they were like, yeah, we can fix it, but we can't figure out what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be like several days. And we're just like, oh my god. So we end up, I think on like Tuesday or Wednesday, finally decided like we're just gonna go, because we had like that whole week off from school. We're just gonna like spend the week in Nashville. So we take Kenny's car, and without a spare tire, like on this 12-hour road trip, drive all the way here, and it was just like this nightmare situation. Turned out great. We had that was the other thing too. That was like the same day. It was like a year, almost to the day of like the Nashville flood, and the day. It was like within a couple days of us getting here, all these crazy tornadoes went through Alabama, and we were staying down in Brentwood. So like, we're literally like in the parking lot of this hotel, surrounded by people that were like refugees from like we're like, oh, what's up? You're here on vacation with your family? Like, oh no, we lost everything, and this is like this is where FEMA sent us, like, or whatever the case was. It was crazy. So then it was really wild. It was a wild time. So then I was like, so we're in this hotel with like nothing but like people that were like stranded from this like weather situation, but we had like really good time. I like never been to Nashville before, and even though I was like 19, I was 18. I was like 18 or 19, and couldn't go to like any bars, but still had like a great time, and immediately like felt at home here, and was just like, okay, this is where I want to go. It was so crazy too, because like at the time, I was like going to school, and like, when you first get in, you're like, I'm gonna go to audio school, I'm gonna be an engineer, and you're like, that's a viable option. And then, by the time like this trip had occurred, it was like well into like the program. You're like, oh, there's like no jobs in this industry. This is like kind of a pipe dream. By the time I graduated, it was definitely like, all right, like let's see how this goes. Like I'll give it a year, and then like if it doesn't work out, I'll just go home and live in mom and dad's basement some more. But yeah, like I started interning at Blackbird, got hired as like a night guy, and the rest is history.
There you go.
But and I love this town, even though it's like it's changed a lot, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's better. Like we definitely have way better food now than when I first came to town, and like I don't know. I mean, it's definitely losing that small town charm to some degree, but at the same time, there's just so much to do. There's so many more bars now. There's so many more restaurants. There's like more events. We have more live music venues now than we did. So I love it here. I definitely I plan to stay.
Sean also has been converting an old military vehicle into a mobile recording rig.
So the mobile recording thing started out like, it was like well, I always had an interest in it. Like I remember, I was like seeing and reading about mobile trucks back when I was in school, and just getting into recording or whatever, and just thinking it was cool, and like seeing bands, load into a house and make a, record in an old church or whatever.
Yeah.
Just environments that aren't purpose-built studios always sort of appealed to me.
Yeah.
And the more time I spent in like proper studios, especially like, I came up here at Blackbird, it was just like, it doesn't get a lot better than this.
Yeah.
If at all, and on some level kind of got bored of it, you know. You're like okay, like, you know, like drums sound amazing in rooms that sound amazing. Like
you don't really have to figure anything out. Like you just plug stuff in and it works.
Yeah, well, hopefully. but yeah, and it was like so like environments that maybe don't sound like a great live room just started like it started to like appeal to me over time. And so like in 2017, 2018, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like do this. It's gonna take, you know, I had no gear, like I was like the engineer that never bought gear because I worked here and I spent so much time here. And I was like, oh, like, and I remember like telling people like, oh, like I don't ever buy gear. I had a computer. But I'm like, I don't ever buy gear. I'm like, why would I? I just like, I'm gonna record it at Blackbird anyway. I'm never gonna need gear. So like I've spent like a good portion of the first 10 years like doing this, like not acquiring gear, unlike every other engineer in the world. Just like I didn't own a microphone, I didn't own a preamp, I didn't own nothing. And so like in 2017, 2018, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start like amassing gear with the goal of being able to do this like mobile situation. That started going down that path. Like, okay, I knew that I eventually wanted to have some sort of mobile truck, some sort of mobile control room. You know, I definitely want to be able to load into a location and like have the control room in the spot where the recording was going on, but also definitely wanted to have like some sort of situation where I could just like pull up, throw a snake out the door and like go. And for a long time it was like school buses I was into, and I get like really obsessive over shit. I'm like way into the internet. So I was like obsessively researching about school buses and box trucks and step vans and all these different vehicles and like trying to figure out, you know, operating costs and just, you know, cost of buying one and insurance and like all these things. And as I was sort of like researching, going down these rabbit holes, all these different vehicles, I became an expert on mid 90s Bluebird buses. So, and it was all these things. It was like, okay, like you can get like a school bus for like relatively cheap. Like they're not super, super expensive, and you can convert it. You're like, but the tires are really expensive, and like all your drivetrain components are expensive, and like it's just an expensive vehicle to like run and maintain. So it was like just going down these rabbit holes of all these different vehicles and trying to figure out which one would work. And then while I was doing that, I was doing a lot of gigs where I was like loading all the shit into my car and having the band haul half the gear in their van or whatever, and doing these like pop-up studio situations. And I was starting to figure out pretty quick that it was going to be more of a size issue, a size capability thing. I was just like, oh yeah, the bigger the better. I want a big control room in a bus or something, or a van or some sort. And I kind of figured out, I was like, okay, like a lot of the places that these artists and bands are taking me, you can't fit a freaking bus or a motorhome or any, you know, or whatever other vehicle I was into at the time. And I was also sort of figuring out that like 4-wheel drive was sort of going to be a thing. So this was like, there's so many iterations I went through, just like figuring out cost and capability, and eventually figured out, I'm like, okay, something relatively small with 4-wheel drive is going to be like the end all be all. But you know, there was also need to be the cool factor. It's just like yes, a 12 passenger Econoline van would work great, but it's just not cool, you know. Like there's you know, it's not unique enough, it's not special in any way, it's just a standard van. So I was trying to stay away from things like that, and in late 2020, after like 2 years of like, I mean, I spent every waking hour, like so many of those sessions where like there's a lot of downtime, like people will like cruise Instagram or whatever. I was on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and eBay all the time, just looking at the market. And I just like burnt myself out on it. Like amassed enough gear to be able to do the you know, track a band without having to rent or borrow anything. Had everything ready to go, had it all packaged, you know, it's like take the lids off the cases. I had everything like streamlined, like be able to plug in simply and just go. And I was like over it. I'm like, God, I'm just never gonna, like, I cannot afford the vehicle that I want, you know. And it was like it was getting to be exhausting. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like give up on this for a while. And literally like the week that I was like, I'm just gonna put this dream on hold until I have the money to afford something that is gonna be like ideal, I go on Facebook Marketplace. I was in a session in D at Blackbird, and it was like over lunch. I just like got on Facebook Marketplace, just like out of habit at this point. It's like muscle memory for my thumb to like open up Marketplace and look at RVs. And I found the vehicle. I found a 1985 military ambulance, and they're called CUC. And it's basically it's a mid 80s 1-ton pickup truck Chevy with a box on the back. And it's just like the perfect vehicle. Like the box is just big enough to fit all my shit in it, but just also small enough I can park it in an alley. I can park it out. I mean, I drive it to work all the time. I take it, I could park it in the grocery store parking lot. It has the same footprint as a pickup truck, but it has a gigantic box on the back. And that was the other thing too. Like I went down this rabbit hole of like when I wasn't finding a vehicle that was going to work, I was like, okay, maybe the option, the move is to get like a small utility trailer that I can pull with one of my cars. It'll be the cheapest option. It'll fit, all the gear can fit in it. It'll be just big enough to like, set up a makeshift control room if I was needed to do that. And then I was like, okay, well, all my cars have a 2,000 pound towing capacity. So I'm just like, okay, the trailer is 1,000 pounds dry. So then it turned into, what is the gear weigh? So I had to get like a shipping scale, and I weighed every piece of gear only to discover that I would be way over on weight. Yeah. And I'd be like basically, doing what I am doing now and having people haul half the gear because I can't physically pull it with my car. So yeah, so then this thing pops up and it's just like it'll freaking haul 5,000 pounds like no problem. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, oh, you want to freaking haul some bricks too? Like throw them in there. So right now I'm in the process. I got that in early 2021, and it's the last year has just been redoing a bunch of shit on it. It's only got 12,000 miles on it, but it's sat for a long time. And the biggest issue with it is the NATO compliant 24 volt electrical system that were in those vehicles is like the absolute worst thing ever devised by man. It's just unreliable shit that was just constantly like it would drive great for like a month. I'd be like driving all over the place doing stuff with it, and then I'd get in, it just wouldn't start. Like the batteries would just be dead. The thing just like not, even though like the freaking voltmeter says it's charging, it's not. And so now the latest part of the process is I've been completely redoing the electrical system. And as of like 3 days ago, it's now driving and capable of doing gigs again. So it's actually, they call it a 5/4 ton. It's a 1 1/4 ton truck. And the box, before I stripped all the shit out of it, was like an extra 1,000 pounds. And then I took a bunch of stuff out of it. And I had all these trees that I'd like taken down over like however many years. Like all the logs are just like sitting in my yard for like ever. And I have another pickup truck, but it's a vintage like 60s Ford truck, and it doesn't haul that much. So I never really like considered using that to haul these like gigantic logs off, because it would take like 50 trips to get these things up to the place where I dump them in Robertson County. And so they like sat forever. So I got this thing and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can put them all in there. So I started out like small because I didn't really know, like, it's like an old truck. This thing's like almost 40 years old. So I'm like, I'm gonna like take it easy with it before I know for sure. And then like the first like couple trips, it was like 2,000, 3,000 pounds. And then I just started upping it, and the heaviest one I took up there was like just under 5,000 pounds, and it was like nothing. It was drove it down the highway with 5,000. It was slow. It's like not a fast vehicle, but yeah, like once you get to the place where you like dump this shit, there's like pretty gnarly little dirt road trail situation up this like muddy hill or whatever. And it's like, I'm like, all right, we're gonna see how it does. But yeah, 5,000 pounds up this like hill and dirt road situation, and it's like, it's fine. So yeah, it's more than capable of hauling anything that I need to haul, pretty much anywhere I think I would go with it. But the goal is to be able to like just like, you want to do a record in rural Alaska, like let's go. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. I'm stoked.
So this is a pretty simple dish we have going on here.
Yeah, what's the process?
So I started with a dashi stock, which is like a Japanese stock base used for a lot of soups. It's literally just kombu, which is or kombu. I don't entirely know how to say that one. But it's just seaweed basically, and you steep it in hot water, and then you steep bonito flakes, which are very thinly shaved smoked fish. And and you just steep them in the water. It makes like this kind of like salty, fishy base to make soups with. And then I steep the miso in there for a little bit.
So the reason I don't freaking try to make anything that's like an overnight situation anymore is when there was like 1 year for like New Year's, I was doing like beef. I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was doing prime rib for like my friends.
Yeah.
And I went to make like a beef stock overnight for the gravy. I guess I like drank too much when I was doing it. You know what it is yes, I did drink too much, but also here's my first shot at the miso. That was a good slurp. That's fucking delicious, dude. Oh my god, that's really good. The butter.
My butter changes it.
That makes it fucking...
Because it's not... So the thing is that there's no... This isn't bone broth. Mm-hmm. So you got to have some sort of fatty element.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I was home for the holidays, and my parents' stovetop, my grandmother's stovetop, have like, you know, like clockwise on the knob makes it hotter. At my house, clockwise turns it down.
Oh.
So like if you like one notch, yeah. So anyway, so clockwise turns it down. Wait, yeah. So yeah. So one click on is like full tilt, and then full clockwise all the way down. And working in my parents' kitchen throughout the holidays confused me, so that when I got back to my house to do New Year's, my drunk ass, right before I went to bed, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna crank this like all the way down. and I turned it all the way the fuck up and like woke up to like a house full of smoke.
Oh my god.
And yeah,
all the water boil out?
Oh yeah, it destroyed the pot.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was great. This works out really well because I forgot to eat today. It's just been like this new thing that I do where I just don't buy food.
Forget to eat.
Well, I don't know if you do the same thing, but like doing what we do.
Yeah.
By the way, we're audio engineers for those listening. You never know what your schedule is, so it's like I don't buy like 2 weeks worth of groceries at a pop. I go out like a few days at a time, and then if like I'm lazy or too tired, or like now post pandemic, the Kroger's not open 24 hours anymore. That's the killer for me.
Yeah.
Is I used to always be able to like on the way home, no matter what the hour was, grab my 3 days worth of food until I knew what was going on, you know, on day 4. And be like good to go. But it's like now I have to like, it's the first time in my life I've had to like make special trips to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I can't do it at 2 a.m. Recently we're gonna watch the Beatles Get Back documentary, which have you seen yet, by the way?
I've seen the first 2.
Did it blow your mind?
Yeah. The thing that blew my mind was like how things haven't changed at all. Like when they're sitting there and they're like talking to Glenn Johns and they're like, can we get an 8-track machine in here? And you just see it in his eyes. He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fucking be here anymore. And he's like, yeah, we can get an 8-track machine.
Well, that was like my biggest takeaway from it was like, well, there's a lot of takeaways from it, but one of the first things I noticed, and not to like speak ill of anyone, but like, Glenn Johns seemed to spend a lot of time hanging out within 18 inches of Paul McCartney. I don't know. Like while we were watching it, it turned into like that could be just a drinking game. Is like every time you see Glenn Johns within 2 feet of Paul McCartney, you could drink and you'd be drunk within the first like 10 minutes of episode 1. But yeah, it was kind of funny. Like I was on a session recently, and the artist, we were talking about the documentary, and the artist was like, yeah, he's like, as soon as I like was watching that, he's like, his first thought was like, oh my god, like, is that how our band is? I was like, oh, can we get some of the larger Neumann microphones in here? Like,
that cracked me up when he said that.
Yeah. Oh, what if we put the PA higher up? That's why we can't write the lyrics or whatever. And then like, not to, I don't know, like discredit the creative process and you know, a lot of those things are important, but it was just funny. He's like God, is that what it's like working with us? I was like, no. I was like, when we made your record, I don't think you ever made a single request at all.
If you want to give like a shout out where people can find you. If you don't want people to find you, that's also fine.
Probably at like some sort of like mental institution is where I'll end up. But yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't know what my shoefly pie, PYE, shoe.fly.pye at whatever. I don't know, however that works. At Instagram.com. My truck has one. His name's Earl, by the way. His Instagram is what is Earl, and follow Earl. I'll start posting, I promise. But yeah, thanks for listening, kids, and thank you for having me on and feeding me your delicious soup.
Well, that's what we're here for.
This is a great way to spend a rainy Saturday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah.
You want to make out?
Yeah. Hey guys, if you're looking to make your own miso soup at home, it's relatively simple. You'll need kombu, bonito flakes, and miso. What you put into the soup is up to you. We enjoyed it with noodles, roasted garlic compound butter, and scallions. But use what sounds good to you: tofu, veggies, and other proteins. Start by making a simple dashi. Spoiler, this isn't a truly authentic Japanese dashi, but it's still delicious. Bring some water. This amount depends on how much soup you want to eat, up to a steamy heat, not boiling. When the water is hot, add a few kombu leaves into the water and let it steep for about 5 to 10 minutes. In the last 3 minutes of the steep, add 1 cup of bonito flakes. After that full steeping time, drain the solids from the liquid. Return the liquid to the pot, and using a fine mesh sieve, stir in between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of your favorite miso. Finish with your favorite protein and toppings, and enjoy. This episode was recorded, mixed, and produced by Checkmate Creative in Nashville, Tennessee. Fermented Follies is a member of the Rock and Joe Podcast Network. Find them on YouTube to check out all their other great shows. The music in this episode features performances by Ashton Rock and Stephen DeRose. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. That is fermented_FOLLIES. Fermented Follies.